Nice to see you guys. Thank you for inviting me. Thanks for baptizing me into the furniture industry market. Sure. I'm learning all about it. I feel like this is the membership class, and I'm learning all the things I need to learn. But it's so cool.
Thanks for being here.
I'm Taylor Helson. I work with Violino, a leather upholstery manufacturing company. For this guy right here in the front row, help. No, I'm sorry.
Send help.
But yeah, I've been in the industry for coming on 4 years. Yeah, going on 4 years in the furniture industry. Absolutely love it. Much better than my degree in journalism. So I'm happy here and happiest in places like this where we can all come together and do something different, do something for the Lord. So with that, should we get started? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sean, also for having us, and Kirk, thank you for coming. This is awesome. So I've watched it quite a few times. I'm sure that as you all were piling in, you started to watch the, we call it his hype reel. Kirk said it's not really hype because there was no but we felt it. We felt it deep down. So we love that hype video, and we see that, I think that in all of our lives there's a difference in being confrontational and being bold. And so, Kirk, we want to ask you, how do you define the circumstances in which it's appropriate to be confident? When do you be confrontational, and when do you be bold? And how can you help us kind of understand that?
That's a great question. And this is all in the context of our faith, right? We're talking about, this is Furniture Fellowship, and we're all talking about how can we download love and truth and kindness, compassion, with courage mixed in, to be able to infuse that not only into our own homes and our children, but also into the world that we live in through our vocations, through our civic involvement, through whatever we have. And I think that's a great question, because at the end of the day, it does take boldness and it does take courage, because there's good and evil in the world. I mean, if you think there's good and evil in the world, there's conflict between good and evil. And I want to be on the side of what is good. And what keeps me from feeling arrogant about, I'm one of the good guys, is that I know I start out one of the people, according to the Bible, I'm a mixed up guy with a lot of selfishness and pride and ego and all kinds of other things that fundamentally has to be transformed by the power and the love of God through the gospel, and now I want to sort of share what I've discovered. And so I guess my model for faith expressing itself through love and courage under fire would be Jesus, and he would often do this by speaking to power, and then also like lawmakers and then religious leaders, and he would also stoop down and wash the everyday person's feet and speak truth and call people out to examine their hearts and see where they're at. And so I think being bold sometimes is by definition controversial, in that it's controversial to evil, just like light is controversial to darkness. I think the key is, are we doing it in love? Are we actually sharing what we believe to lead to human flourishing and what we want for other people and for culture and for our children and for all of this, because we truly care about people? We could be the best at everything that we do, the richest, most powerful, the more whatever, but if we don't have love, we're just a big clanging cymbal making lots of noise and really annoying people, and we're not going to get very far, or many people on our team. So it's kind of a long way around, but I think at the end of the day, boldness is required to advance the good, and we need to do it with humility and love. And then you let the cards fall where they fall. The confrontation is inherent, but then I think heaven smiles upon your cause because you're caring for people.
Love that answer.
Go back to getting started, I guess. What did you? I know you from Growing Pains.
Okay.
From
My
starting
man.
there. So yes, absolutely, absolutely. Now my wife knows you from Teen Beat magazine and all that kind
Okay.
of stuff.
Well, it
but,
was in the same era.
Yeah. The poster was
That's
probably
you.
in her bedroom and like growing up and all that. So but what kind
So
of?
who did you love more? Was it Mike Seaver or was it River Phoenix or Corey Haim or Corey Feldman? D, all of the above. Yeah, we were.
So what kind of acting did you do before Growing Pains?
Before Growing Pains, I was acting in television commercials like 409 Cleaner and McDonald's and Fruit Roll-Ups and Tide detergent. This was when I was about 9 and 10 years old. Now, interestingly, I never wanted to be an actor, and I feel like I sort of hit the jackpot with, on my first try for a guy who doesn't even not even interested in the lottery. I wanted to be a doctor, kind of like Ben Carson. I love school, I love academics, I love science, I love math, I love nonfiction. I'm not really naturally a creative, right brain kind of person. Do I have the sides right? I think it's the right brain kind of person. And yet my mom had a friend whose child was in a show called 8 is Enough. And she would always say, you should take your kids down to this agent and see if maybe they could get a commercial and you could put some money away for college if they did. It'd be just easy. And so she did, and the agent said, hey, let's send your son out. And so I started going out and doing these little commercials, some parts in television shows. Shows you probably you wouldn't remember, but they were just little bit shows until I landed Growing Pains when I was 14. And again, I would much rather be at home with my friends playing basketball and doing other things, but it was a job, I was making money, it was pretty fun. And then by the time I graduated high school and wanted to go to college, I realized, well, I've already got a career that's been launched, and it doesn't really make sense to quit. I'll just see when the sort of the train runs out of steam, and then I'll go to college. But by that time, I was married, I was 21, I met my girlfriend on the show, of Growing Pains. I married Mike Seaver's girlfriend on the show. Off camera, we fell in love and got married. And God's continued to open doors. So there was acting before, acting afterward. I've never wanted to be an actor. If I never did it again, I'd never miss it at all. I'm really I love history and education and faith and family and culture. But there was lots of fun things before Growing Pains.
My turn again? Why is it important, Kirk, for people of faith to make their voices heard in their community?
Well, I would say that culture is created by great ideas that are implemented by people of faith and courage. And if we care about our children's future and our grandchildren's future, I just became a grandpa, so I get to say that now. My little baby girl just had a little baby girl. If we stay silent, culture is then put in charge. People with potentially lesser values are in charge of your children's future. So speak up. Talk about the things that are important to you. And I have a feeling that you'll find there's a lot more people that agree with you than you may think. And when we close our mouth, again, other people with lesser values may win the day culturally, and then that gets locked in legally through bad policy and otherwise, and all of a sudden, good is being punished and evil is being rewarded. And we've had that happen throughout mankind and history. And I believe, and I'll talk more about this tomorrow, that when you come to discover the rich and beautiful life of faith, and God is not just an idea or a force, but a person that you have a relationship with, there's an inheritance you get with that, and that is a love for people and this new creation courage that compels you to want to open your mouth and talk with people about what you value. And that builds worlds. It actually creates futures. And so I think it's really important that people of values open their mouth and speak up. And don't just keep it tucked away private inside.
Not that my wife would probably think that I'm a big reader, but I'm trying to not call you out every single time. But I'm
Here
just
it comes.
curious, what is your favorite book
My favorite book.
and why?
Yeah.
Why
So
would it be your favorite?
does it sound too cliche to say the Bible?
I was going to say you can't say
I
the
mean-
Bible.
A little bit, right? So maybe we got to go with a book in the Bible. Okay. Okay. So if we want to go with the Bible, I would say yes, the Bible. Yes, the Bible. And within the Bible, Genesis is just so fantastic. But I have a special affinity for the book of Hebrews. It's not because I'm Jewish it's that is this so Bible nerdy of me right now? I'm talking about the book of Hebrews.
Nerd out.
Who says this?
You're safe here.
Well, I love it because, you know, you're talking about first century Israel and before. And so to get a context of what people were thinking back during that time, and you get this, for me, to understand the concept that you're moving from one covenant, the old covenant order under Moses, and moving into the new covenant order under Christ, and what that transition looks like and what that means, what actually changes, it's a lens through which to understand the whole rest of the Bible that helps so much. And if we don't understand that, we can get really mixed up. So I'm particularly thankful for that book. But outside of the Bible, you know, a book that I've, I mean, there's so many books that are sort of like based on the Bible that I like, but C.S. Lewis and his books with the Chronicles of Narnia, he picks up the themes in the scriptures and he writes these fantastical, mystical stories, and so does Tolkien with Lord of the Rings. And so I love stuff like that, where you have all of this symbolism embedded in all of these stories, with Sauron and Gandalf and Aslan and the wicked queen and all of that. But Animal Farm is a really interesting book. Remember reading that in like 6th grade? I reread it. It'll blow your mind. You'll blow your mind. Because you realize that the farm animals are listening to the pigs who they think they're on their side, and the pigs end up taking over, and they're worse than the farmer that he taught them to hate. And they don't realize what's going on because they can't read. They just trust the pigs at the top. And man, it all goes downhill from there. And you just swear they're talking about like what you're watching happen in front of your very eyes. And this sort of applies as the pendulum swings politically from the right to the left, and it's just so appropriate. It's a cool book. And it's not very long, so you can get through it, you know, in a couple of days.
Are you smarter than a 6th grader?
What's that?
I said, are you smarter than a 6th grader? That's
Yeah,
a good way to put it.
yeah.
That's great. I've never read it, so.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
Animal Farm.
Sean, have you read it?
I'm sure I did, but I don't.
Well, we just got the highest endorsement, so we need to get to work.
It's got animals, so it's fun, and you love it.
Yeah, I'm sure my wife has read it. She's a school teacher. Yes, you know, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we'd like to open it up to a couple other questions. So, Carlos, do you have?
Yeah. One of my questions for you was, you know, I think you got it.
Yeah.
I find it interesting, you know, for you that you didn't like acting, but for most people it's their dream.
Yeah.
And I figured, you know, when you got into acting and then decided to take a stance for your faith, you know, I read a lot of the books of Psalms where the people have difficult times, and then how you translated that to being in the form of praise, like at the end of the song, and then how did God glorify you through those times?
Yeah.
Have those moments.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely did. I had times, I don't know if you can all hear what he's talking about, but times where I felt like there was my faith was bumping up against career goals or relationships with others who I needed to help me advance career stuff or other things that I was doing. Yes, and I experienced that. I think now that I'm 55 years old and I've got some years under the belt, we get older, we get perspective. And all of a sudden, the things that used to stress us out don't stress us out quite as much because we see that there's a God who's faithful. And you see that his ways always lead to blessing. And you're just like, come on, get on board the biblical program and trust the Lord and his promises. His path always leads to blessing and protection. So when I look back, yes, standing for what I thought was right was not always popular. But I had some good teaching that let me know, first of all, the gospel being accurately proclaimed, that there is a God who is not only God of love, but a God of holiness, that he's a consuming fire, and that he went to great lengths to extinguish the wrath of God towards sin, and that the only proper response is humility, repentance, and faith. That started me out very low and humble, knowing that if it took Jesus Christ to be crucified on the cross in order for me to get into heaven, God's not playing around. And so I wanted to live my life in a way that said thank you without hypocrisy. So I wanted to do the right thing, and when I did, there was people who, like on the set of Growing Pains, producers who thought, when I would say, guys, I really don't think I should be in bed with this girl at 14 years old. But that's real life. And I'm like, yeah, but we're a family show, and kids are looking up to Mike Seaver as a role model. All of a sudden, you see how I've positioned it for 40-year-old men and women who are accomplished producers. It's like, who's this kid who's sort of positioning himself as taking the moral high road, and we're the perverts? Well, that doesn't sit well, with some 17-year-old kid, who's also got a religious root behind the whole thing. And so it was like, you're trying to push your religion on other people, and who do you think you are? You're the actor, you're not the writer. And I was just trying to do the right thing, but I knew in the back of my mind and in my heart that was the least I could do if I wanted to be a follower of Christ. Right? Well, Jesus would say things like that. If you deny me in front of men, I'll deny you in front of my Father in heaven. If anyone wants to follow after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. If you decide you want to try to save your life, you'll lose it. But he who loses his life for my sake and for the gospel's will save it. And I was like, I'm in. Like, this is what I want to do. And I never wanted to be an actor anyway. So if this whole thing goes up in flames, I'll go back to medical school. And I look back now and I say, God has been so faithful. He's been so, and every plan that I ever had was superseded by a better plan that he had. And if I hadn't been an actor on Growing Pains, if I hadn't stood for the things that I believed were honorable, I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have gotten married. I wouldn't have my 6 children. I would never have done the movie Fireproof. I never would have met Ray Comfort or done the other projects that I had a chance to be a part of that have actually nourished my life so much and given me wisdom and perspective to be able to raise my kids. And I probably wouldn't be sitting here because this is Furniture Fellowship. It takes a lot of faith to invite, an actor from California to come show up. You never know what crazy things could come out of his mouth. So standing for what's true and beautiful and good has served me really well over the last 3 or 4 decades. And so why would I turn my back on that?
Got another question out there?
Anybody got questions out here?
Okay, you were speaking, we have 2 over here.
Okay.
Okay, girl. Speaking of your 6 kids, so how keep up with your 6 children, especially in this day and time?
Especially when?
In this day and time.
Oh, I thought you said especially during the daytime.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Just not tonight, only the day.
Yeah. Yeah, we're sleeping at night. We have 6.
Are all your children close, or are they all in Nashville with you guys?
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm from California. My wife's from New York. She moved from New York to California to try out acting. We got married, had 6 kids. Our 6 kids were raised, and all of them, flew the nest. We're there all alone, and we love California for so many reasons, but we love our kids more, and 3 of them were in Tennessee. So we moved to Tennessee, and then the other 3 migrated to Tennessee.
Nice.
So now we got Sunday night dinners every
Nice.
weekend again, and it's awesome. 2 of my children are married. My son just got engaged last week, and birthday party. It's great, and my granddaughter there. So just ordered the baby chicks. So we got like 9 little chicks. We got eggs coming. I mean, the whole thing.
And we saw
It-
that on Instagram.
Oh, did you?
Yes,
All right.
we
Well, thanks for.
did.
So the way that we keep up with 6 kids, when they were little, and they're all 1 year apart. So when they were little, they were 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, and 1. Yeah. And that's one of the things we loved about California is that we were outside all the time. It's this great big playground at the beach and the mountains and the backyard and all of that. Tennessee has a lot of bugs. So there's challenges over here. But we just loved it. I think my wife was made to be a mom. She just dove in head first from the very beginning. She loved it. That's why we had so many. And I think when you're all in, it's a joy. If you're struggling between dividing your time up between too many things, trying to be excellent at too many things, it just stretches you so thin that my tolerance for irritation or inefficiency just gets squeezed down to 0, And so for us, it was like we were all in, like chickens, homeschooling, like the whole thing. And in California. And so we just really loved it. And now that they're older, I thought my overhead would go down with less expenses, but it just seems to keep climbing with college and marriages and other kinds of things. But we love it. It's what life is all about.
It is.
Yeah.
I think we have one more. Is that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So, Kirk, you've been involved in so many different projects. You were just referencing some of them, and what I love about it is they all feel like passion projects because it's not something that you're doing, it's something you're living, is how it comes across. Yeah. So I was just curious what type of projects you're currently working on. Where's your focus and passion now?
Thank you for asking. And yes, that's one of the great privileges I've had is to be able to do stuff that I'm really passionate about doing. One of those, I don't know if you guys saw this, you had mentioned Instagram, but on Instagram and Facebook, do you remember when we were in California, we were under house arrest during COVID. We were in full lockdown mode. We couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go to church. You couldn't go to school. You couldn't go to your business. You couldn't get your hair cut. You couldn't go anywhere. You could go get some weed and you could get some alcohol because those were essential services, according to the governor. But you couldn't go to church on Easter, or it was pretty insane. And so I was in my backyard, I should have been staying 6 feet away from my wife and my kids. And so what I did was I was just so passionate about what in the world is happening? We're living in insane world now. And so it was right at the time of the new president at the time's first 100 days in office. And I thought, well, what's our 100-day plan for the family of faith? And I thought of the Bible verse that said, if my people will humble themselves and they'll pray and they'll turn from their wicked ways and seek my face, then I'll hear their prayers, I'll heal their land, and I'll forgive their sin. And I'm like, that's what we need. We need that now more than ever. And so I thought, I like campfires, and I love this country, I love my family, and I love God. So I'm going to go on Facebook Live, and I'm going to call it the American Campfire Revival, and I'm going to humble myself, and I'm going to pray out loud with whoever will join me, and I'm going to study the founding principles of this nation rooted in the Word of God, that in hopes that God might hear us and begin to bring healing to our land. And that was a real passion project that I just loved. And so for 100 consecutive nights, we made campfires and prayed together live. And that's kind of, did you? Okay, and that's kind of morphed into what I'm doing now, which is a new, so it's like American Campfire Revival 2.0, and it's a podcast and YouTube show. Now that I'm not under house arrest in California under Governor Mussolini, I'm inside the house, and we've got a window of opportunity, I believe, right now with some air cover for the family of faith to do so much good and advance the truth in love if we have a heart to do it through our schools and through our churches and our families and through our businesses and through government policy. And so that's what I'm really leaning into is work for kids, a new kids TV show, a new modern day Mr. Rogers Neighborhood, and this podcast, which is kind of like my version of like a Joe Rogan show.
When is the new Mr. Rogers?
New Mr. Rogers show. It's out now. It's called The Adventures of Iggy and Mr. Kirk. And Iggy is like, think of like Kermit the Frog, only he's an adorable green iguana. He's 5 years old, and my wife and I are raising him in our backyard treehouse. And he's got to learn how to be a good little kid in today's culture where he's struggling with identity issues, he's struggling with the internet, he's struggling with faith and friends and family and fear and everything else. And there's all these other characters who live in the backyard, including a vulture named Culture, who's always lying to Iggy and deceiving him. And he's got to rely on his dad and mom's biblical wisdom, and he has access to a non-woke supercomputer who can give him information that helps him discern the truth. It's really cute. It's called Iggy and Mr. Kirk. And if you just download the Brave Plus app on your phone, tablet, or smart TV, Brave Plus, you can watch the first 3 episodes for free. And then after that, you can subscribe to it. If you have PureFlix, it's going to be coming out soon on PureFlix and a few other networks as well.
So as you've worked on numbers of projects over the years, and you've transformed your life from being more in the culture than and now being more in the Jesus culture, I'm sure you faced lots of adversity and challenges along the way. And I was just wondering if you had some tips that you could give us to be able to be more brave as we turn up our volume and live more authentically for Christ. How can you encourage us or maybe give us tips, to weather it as well as you have?
Yeah, great question. Well, first I would say that in order to be brave, we've got to have a vision of victory rather than a vision of pessimism, defeat, and escapism, which many people of faith actually have today. And it's kind of almost built into our theology. Things are getting worse. Satan is alive and well. The devil's on the prowl. He's in charge of the world, and we kind of stay huddled in our safe Christian cocoons. And we're waiting to escape before all good and light is extinguished by darkness and get to heaven. I reject that whole narrative. And so I would say our goal ought not to be, hey, you were once part of the culture and now you're part of a Jesus culture that's looking to get rescued. I would say, no. Let's go back to the beginning of our story. In the beginning, God created the world, and he put a family there with Adam and Eve, and they were to have children. And generationally, they were to colonize Earth with the values of heaven. We're the original creator cultures. I didn't say that right. We're the original culture creators. And throughout history, the very best cultures, mainstream cultures, have been created by the people of faith who know God and apply the principles of his word to their culture. That's why we have the United States of America. When we come out of paganism and we don't see ourselves as a minority ghetto culture that's just going to be persecuted and then we wait to be rescued, but rather the ones who have a power in us that is greater than the power that is in the world and the light that overcomes the darkness, we're then able to advance things like human rights, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, educational opportunities, the protection of the unborn and minorities, regardless of your race, your color, your wealth, all these biblical ideas create human flourishing. And what we're noticing now is the retraction of those blessings because we've moved further and further away from those biblical values that once defined the way most people thought. Now, that whole idea is sort of challenged by much of higher education and fake historians who want to rewrite the past. But I believe that our goal ought to be, Lord, may your kingdom come. May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And what if this current cultural setback that requires so much bravery from the family of faith is really a divine setup for a spiritual comeback led by the family of faith? That's a revival. That's another great awakening. We've already had 2 in this country. I think we're on the verge of another one. And I think we have inspiring heroes of history and lessons from legends we can learn to inspire our courage and bravery. But we've got to have a vision of victory, and we've got to do it the right way, which is not send out 1,000 mandates and force it on everybody from the top down, but rather teach it to your children at the kitchen table and in their schools, and infuse the fragrance of heaven into your work and everything that you do, your speech, the way you care for people, everything you do. And from the inside out, it begins to grow. And from the bottom up, it begins to permeate the whole country. That's how I think God grows things. Like a little seed that turns into a giant oak tree that fills the whole garden. And everyone wants to come and make their home there. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here, Kirk. Sort of a part A and part B. Tell us sort of the transition from being in mainstream Hollywood film and acting to how you moved into Christian film, like with Fireproof, and then were there haters or people that sort of planted seeds of doubt along the way or cast maybe doubts in your mind about doing it? And then part B was, how did you hear God's voice in that process of moving from being in the mainstream of culture to doing something opposite, sort of counterculture?
Thank you. Well, I remember the first faith-driven film that I did was probably Left Behind, based on the Jerry Jenkins, Tim LaHaye book series. Some of you may have read those books. And I had recently come to faith out of atheism. I think everybody has faith, by the way. I think we're all worshipers. It's just a matter of who you worship, what you worship. I had recently come to faith in Christ, and I wanted my career path to reflect the values of my personal life. And so when I had an opportunity to do Left Behind, I told my managers and agents that I wanted to do that, and they're like, "Oh, no, what is that?" No, you're not going to do that. Like, we've worked too hard to get you like a good career for you to just tank it by, hitching your wagon to these religious weirdos. And I was like, well, yeah, but I really like this and I really want to do this. And so I did, and you know, there's millions and millions of people who read the Left Behind books who were really interested in the movie. And I don't think it was the greatest movie in the world, and there's lots to discuss theologically about the movie and all of that stuff. But it really gave me a taste for doing projects that I'm passionate about. And rather than just doing something to get a paycheck or something, I wanted to do things that I felt were meaningful. And so Fireproof was one of those, and I loved it. I mean, I loved the movies made by the Kendrick brothers. They did Fireproof and also Courageous, about parenting, and War Room, about prayer, and they've done others so good. And I asked them if I could work with them, and they gave me a shot with Fireproof. And so I did that. Everybody worked for free. Nobody got paid on that movie. In fact, most all of their movies, the people don't get paid, except for a few professional camera operators who, work with unions and licenses and stuff like that. And I've loved it. I pretty much only work on things that I feel like I can believe in and that are in alignment with the message that I want to share. Which has been a real privilege. I mean, I know that, I could be working in a factory, or I could be, sweeping floors, and that in itself, I think, is also just as, can be just as representative of the message in who you are and how you do it, and the quality of job that you do, the attitude with which you do it, and how you serve people with those things, because we all need all of it. But it has been a real blessing to be able to be like really on point with projects that carry a message about marriage or faith or something like that.
Hey, Kirk. My question is, I've got 2 young children who, I've got a 5-year-old who loves to pray. If Margaret on the playground gets a boo-boo, he's saying one before bed for her. But when, you mentioned Animal Farm, which was one of my favorite books ever. The thing that really strikes me about that book, where the tides turn, is where the pigs take the pups, right? The pups are now against the parents. And I guess my question is, how do I maintain, in a non-overreaching way, the excitement and joy as they start to age? I haven't gotten to the point yet where they're, everything I do is awesome for the most part, which is great. It's got to be the best part. But as they get into, like, let's say middle school, where you can't, it's unpopular to read your Bible in school if you're not going to a Christian academy. How do you kind of fight off the pigs, as an analogy, use them as culture instead of communism in this sense, without being overreaching, if I phrase that correctly?
Yeah. Well, I think communism and culture is already overreaching into your world by getting into your kids' heads. God gave your kids to you and to your wife, their mom. God gave our children, our grandchildren to us, not to culture, not to government, not to schools, not even to churches. God gave them to you. So I think you have the opportunity and the responsibility, as I do and all of us do with our children, to train them up in the way that they should go. And so, if I put my, if I let my kids, if I sent my kids to a bar to be educated, I shouldn't be surprised if they come back alcoholics, right? If I send my kids to the candy store to be nourished, I wouldn't be surprised if they came back diabetics, right? If I send my children to Caesar to be educated, I shouldn't be surprised if they come back Romans. So I would say be very careful about where your kids are spending time. And this is why the homeschool movement has grown so much, is because parents are just like, I go to the school board meeting, or I do what I can, I write letters, and they ignore me. Like the leadership is just gone the other way. Okay, but they're not holding a gun to anyone's head to make your kids show up there and put them in front of those people for 8 hours a day to literally reprogram the pups to hate the pigs. To hate the parents, right? But that's what they're doing to our children, is that your parents are old-fashioned cranks who read a book that's way outdated, America is an awful country based on oppression. You know, the family is, you know, is a construct that maybe used to work, but there's really no reason for it in the traditional sense today. They're going to do all of that. And so I would say, man, don't be worried about overreaching into your children's worlds, especially because they're so little. God wants you all over their world, under their world, in their world, and around their world. Don't let people with awful ideas overreach into your territory. You have the authority, not them. And, you know, I think this gets back to what we were talking about, boldness without being confrontational. They're bringing the fight to you already, bro. They want your kids because everybody knows whoever gets to get into their little moldable, malleable, impressionable minds young will control the future narrative. And they get to decide who the good guys and the bad guys are, right? And so I just say, they make the most of every opportunity to teach your children what's normal, what baseline is, and that is we love each other, we forgive each other, we pray and we read our Bible, we love our neighbors and we help people, and good is good and evil is evil, and we have convictions about those things. If you have to change schools, change schools. You have to bring them home, bring them home. If you have to, you know, look at different jobs or different whatevers to be able to protect your family in this one precious opportunity you have to raise the next generation of human beings. They got nobody else looking after them more than you and their mom. And so I would just say, you know, sell everything else you have and invest in them. Yeah, you're welcome.
I would say I don't want to cut it short. I would say that your kids are a little bit older, but now there's a ton of resources like Classical Conversations and co-op groups that make homeschool an attainable thing. So it's, I think the perception I had was you would have to teach your kids everything.
Yeah,
And
you're the math teacher, the music teacher, the history teacher. No, there's so much curriculum and so many co-ops, so many churches, so many schools, so many networks. It's too much. It's like coming to this showcase. You're just like, well, will they have, will I have furniture? Will I find a couch? You're just like, you have no idea. That's what it's like in the world of like home education now. There's so many options and versions and iterations that it's not like turning your house into a classroom and you become the professor. There's online education, there's all kinds of really cool stuff.
in athletics, if you like athletics, there's homeschool athletics, and I coach
Yeah,
in
and public and
homeschool
private
athletics, so-
schools will
Yep.
will say, hey, we understand your homeschool family, come on in, you can be a part of all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we wanted to wrap up a little bit early so that we could have some time to maybe
Yeah.
have people take pictures. And we brought a book for everybody that's here that you would, get to take with you as Kurt's latest book. But I figured, like what'd you say, do the Uno reverse card. And we've been asking you a ton of questions, so now we would like for you to pick an
I get to ask
unwilling
you a
victim.
question?
Not me, somebody else. Because I am sitting with all my friends and I don't want to be
Okay.
interrupted.
All right, this is a group. Okay, this is a fun one, and we're talking about faith stuff here. So here's a question. All right, I'll ask you a question. Is a faith question. We'll go a little Bible here. Like, how many of each animal did Moses bring on the ark? How many of each animal did Moses bring on the ark?
No, there's a separation between species.
Raise your hand, please. The answer is 0. It wasn't Moses, it was Noah. All right, here's a group one. Can I do one more? Here's a group one. Okay, everybody answer this out loud together. And it's much more fun if you participate. Don't like I'm gonna be quiet so that I don't embarrass myself. Don't do that. Like just out. It's more fun because you'll all have fun together. Okay, everybody. Okay, spell the word shop. S. Good. What do you do when you come to a green light? A green light. No, I said green light. There it is. There it is.
people were just a little slow.
Yeah. All right, so, yeah, so there's my questions.
Last one. You had 6 kids. What was your favorite dad joke?
My favorite dad joke. I've acquired a couple of new ones. Yeah. You know what I don't like about psychics is that they're either all a hopeless romantic or all doom and gloom. Why can't I find a happy medium? That's super cool. He asked for a dad joke. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Never trust atoms. They make up everything. Well, we were going so well there, and we just lost altitudes, just all of a sudden with dad jokes. So this book that he's going to give you is a book I was really happy to write during the COVID American Campfire Revival year, and it's called Born to be Brave: How to be a Part of America's Spiritual Comeback. And it has great stuff in there for everybody, including helping us as guys to not be passive bystanders and watchers, but be active, engaged warriors fighting the good fight of faith in the army of compassion. So I hope you like it. I enjoyed writing it. Well, thank you guys so much for coming in tonight and just spending a little bit of time with us. I hope it's been entertaining or encouraging, one of the two.